Hi, this is Greg Suddy. Hi, this is Greg Suddy, Study on Soccer. I'm here with Pat Healey, uh, head coach and general manager of the Harrisburg Heat. And before I say anything else, Pat, I have to apologize. That is my intro for the San Diego Sockers guys that I have when I have on the show. I have I punched the wrong button for our intro, buddy. I'm really sorry about that.
Showing
Oh,
that
that was
you're a little homer for San Diego.
Yeah, I guess that was sort of a Freudian slip there. Thank you so much for joining me today, Pat. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, so some of the exciting thing we're just going to mention. We're not going to. I mean, everybody out there, if anybody's even watching, I'm a little surprised because I'm sure most of the fans are digging through their schedules that just came out about an hour ago, trying to see who they're playing and who they're going to fly to, where they're going to make the trips on the road, and that kind of thing. But it's pretty exciting to finally see the schedules out.
Yeah, everybody needs to get their holidays where they're supposed to be, and that's the interesting part about indoor soccer. We play through Christmas, New Year's, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So got to figure out where you got to go, flights you got to book right now, and make accommodations. That's what everybody's doing.
Do you have any thoughts you want to share about the Harrisburg Heat schedule? What is up or down about it? Is there anything you want to mention? I'll sort of start. What I found interesting about the San Diego Soccer schedule is they don't play the Monterey Flash at all the whole season. I found that to be kind of odd. But yeah, is there anything like that going on with Harrisburg Heat?
No, well, making the schedule is impossible. It's there's them you can do just because of arena availability, travel. It kind of makes it interesting. So there's times that you don't play a certain team that you think you'll play. I remember as a player one time we didn't when us in Kansas City were kind of Bill Blast in Kansas City were kind of rock. We didn't play them during the regular season either. And I think as the year they went undefeated during the regular season, we never played them. We won 18-2, and we never played them. It just happens sometimes. So with arenas, dates, everything, it's a big, and the league does a good job of trying to figure that all out to make it as balanced as possible. But there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the fans out there would like to see. I'll use the word more balanced from the standpoint of having the teams playing outside of their conference more than they do. I personally, Pat, I have kind of a mixed emotion about that because I like the interaction between the two conferences, East and West. But and I understand that travel expenses are a big reason for that being somewhat limited. But then at the same time, when you have a conference set up and you want to make a first place, second place standing in the ladder within the conference, if the conference is playing outside, if the teams are playing outside the conference, then that ladder isn't as much a representation of what's happening within the conference. So playing inside the conference sort of shows who is actually the best teams or the worst teams in that conference. There is a little bit more transfer back and forth, I think, this season with some teams anyway. But yeah, I know scheduling can't be. It's got to be just a miserable thing as far as trying to figure out dates and times. So Pat Healey, you were born in Baltimore, Maryland. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, you haven't strayed too far from home in your professional career or or when you were growing up. You you were playing. Let me see. I just want to look at some of my notes. You grew up in Bel Air, Maryland, and you actually played at Towson University.
Correct.
That's pretty interesting. Can you talk a little bit about your collegiate career? Because I got some notifications here. Three-time All Selection, All CAA Selection, All South Atlantic Regional Player. I mean, you weren't making any. You were hitting the ground running in your college years.
Yeah. grew up playing in the Baltimore area, went to a prestigious high school in the area called Coward Hall. It's a well-known school in the area, multiple professional play, year after year.
Wow.
One right now is Ben Bender, who was the first pick of the draft a few years ago at Charlotte. Could have gone other places for college, but just found my home at Towson. The size of school, size of conference, where I wanted to be was a perfect fit for me. And that's why I try to tell kids, it's not, you could look at the big schools, but what's the right fit for you? That school was right fit for me. The CIA at the time would get sports in the NCAA tournament each year, so I thought that was the best fit for playing right away, and then getting the right competition to get to that next level, and that's what I was trying to achieve. Had a pretty good career there, and was able to move the professional ranks.
Well, it's funny you say that, because a lot of the time when I do these interviews, a lot of the people that I talk to make that same sort of statement about their college, the colleges that they chose to go to, and the reasons why they chose to go to that particular college. Is the match, is the connection, is how there was something about that program, maybe a coach, maybe another player or something that made the difference and brought them into that particular program. And then also they can, it's frequent to hear the conversation continue that the choice was actually such a good one and made such a big difference later in the professional career. Do you carry a lot of that feeling going forward?
Yeah, without a doubt. I looked at a ton of schools. I'm not gonna lie. All over. Looked at a lot of schools in that CAA conference, that are well known. It was just what's right for you. Is it a coach? I think when you make your choice, you're not just picking, especially if you're playing soccer or a sport, you're not picking the school, you're not picking the coach, you're picking both. There's not a good relationship with the coach if there's not comfortability with the school. One of those things are wrong, it's not going to work. And that's why there's a lot of transfers, especially now. It's even more. So you got to pick the right, school, academically size, and what you're trying to probably do for the rest of your life. And then also your teammates that are going to be your teammates and your coach comfortable with you, comfortable with your style, and are you comfortable with their style? If that all works, I think you have a successful college career. If something's off, you look changes.
Did you look outside the area? I mean, for me, when I started looking at colleges, one of the prerequisites for the college that I wanted to go to was it had to be at least 1,000 miles away from San Diego, because I mean, as much as I love San Diego, that's where my mom and dad live. So I would go away to college, and I wanted to get out of. I mean, I wanted to get out of there. Of course, I came back, and now I see my mom and dad 2 or 3 times a week. But at that point in time, so did you look outside the area, or did you pretty much concentrate on things there in Maryland?
Yeah, it's one of those things to draw a big circle. How far is the driving distance that I wanted to be? Is it like 5 hours? Probably like, can you do it? In a reasonable time. Being on the East Coast of Baltimore, you draw a 5-circle radius, you're getting a lot of places, and a lot of college soccer. So, we're looking at Philly, New York area, of course, and Virginia, stuff like that. It just happened to be the school that was in my town that kind of worked out. We have a couple of good schools in our area with Loyola University and UMBC right in the backyard. Maryland's prestigious powerhouse. We looked at them. One of the weird one was I was looking at Temple. They were kind of down to the last ones. A former, Tony Donatelli was there. I met him on my unofficial recruiting trip. A guy named Hannigan was the goalie there at the time too. They played in the league. So it's funny how you look ahead. David McWilliams was the coach. So that was one of the schools I was very, very interested in. Philly's not that far, only about an hour from my house. I'm in the northern Baltimore area, so it's not that far. So going to Philly's very similar to go to Towson. Towson's 45 minutes.
Right. Um, so I've been to Baltimore a couple of times. And one of the things I'm gonna shift the gear just a little bit. One of the things that is just, I mean, instantly fun is the Inner Harbor. That whole area down in Baltimore is just, it's a great location.
Correct.
One of the things that was interesting to me about Baltimore was how close it is to Washington D.C.
Mhm.
Because the reason I went there, the whole reason I was even there was because in Baltimore was because I was visiting, I was traveling to Washington D.C. quite frequently for a couple of years, and I mean one of the trips was during the MISL season, and
Mhm.
there was a Baltimore Blast uh, um, Silver Knights, Syracuse Silver Knights game that was going on downtown in Baltimore. So I made the trip and went to
Mhm.
the game where you were playing. This was probably 2013, maybe 2012, something like that. And uh, and I loved the downtown area. I mean, the inner circle, the inner harbor, and that whole area. But I wanted to ask you, but with Washington D.C. being so close to where you've grown up, where you've lived most of your life, do you take time to do the tourist thing in Washington D.C.? I mean, do you
Yeah.
go down there because buddy, when I went there, I was blown away with
Mhm.
with what Washington D.C. is from a tourist standpoint. With the Smithsonian and I mean just everything that's going on down there. Do you go and visit that location very much?
Yeah, the great thing about, yeah, you're not that far away. So as a child, our class trips and stuff like that are to Philadelphia, are to DC, and it's not that far.
Right,
Um, you're
right,
able to do that in the day and come in and back. Where if a person from, Kansas City has to fly and
right.
stuff like that, our history's right here. You're able to do that as a kid. I'm a little bit of a history buff. I love that stuff, and I'm waiting for my kids to be a little older to go to that stuff so they can appreciate it a little bit more.
No kidding.
But my daughter went down there last year with a friend and couldn't been more happy to spend the time in DC
Yeah,
for the day. And everybody doesn't know, like DC has, just like every city, different parts. You know, the east side is
right.
different from the north side, the west side. With it's a very interesting how each city can forms itself. But there's lots of different parts, not just the DC downtown, just the outskirts of. We
Right.
were there the other day. My daughter had a soccer game at the RFK Stadium campus where the stadium used to be, and over the last couple of years, how pretty that area
Right.
has become.
Right.
Soccer fields and football everywhere, so for the youth, it's able to be a little bit more accessible. I think they're actually talking about rebuilding the stadium there, but
Really?
the well, they don't like FedEx right now, so they're trying to
Okay.
rebuild stadiums. But it's really good for uh, being so close that you're able to go to that stuff. It's not that far away, so the DMV area kind of knows uh, what it's all about, and you're able to get the things. Even like I said, Philly's an hour, New York's at two
Right.
and a half hours. You're able to
Yeah.
access a lot of different things. Very, some big cities.
Yeah. I was talking with Tony Donatelli yesterday, and one of the things we spoke about is how the people on the West Coast really don't understand, they fully don't get it, how close major population centers are on the East
Mhm.
Coast. It really is close to travel from, and then also to get out of the area too. I mean, to go, upstate New York isn't that far. To go into the
5 hours.
the Amish country in Pennsylvania. I mean, it's just not that far away. You
Yeah.
know,
They're 45 minutes from me. I have to drive through them every day to get to practice. Yeah.
that's fun. Yeah,
And
no,
you're going to hit a buggy. You're going to hit a buggy sometimes. It's okay. You
that's
just,
really good. That's interesting. I mean, when I was doing those trips, I did a lot of time going around to the different sites, and what it was interesting was how much. I mean, you mentioned a day in DC. I mean, you can't see DC in a day. I mean, I remember I remember going. I thought so. This was the very first time I went. This was pretty interesting. Very first time I went. I've got a hotel. I'm over. I did an overnight in Washington. I had a whole day, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to take the public transportation down to the mall, and I'm gonna walk the mall. And I had no idea how far it was to go from, say, the Washington Monument to the Capitol building. I mean, that's massive. And then the fact that you've got all of the different Smithsonian museums lining both sides of the mall. You pick one, because if you pick more than one, you don't get it done.
You gotta pick like one museum a day.
Right, exactly. And I just don't think that a lot of people recognize that who have not been there. It's a wonderful place, and like I said, it was that opportunity that I mean, I had been to Baltimore before. Back in the 80s, I traveled to Baltimore for a couple of the Baltimore Blast San Diego Soccer's championship games that were played in Baltimore. So I had been there before, but my memory, that was a long time ago, and my memory wasn't. I mean, all my memory was of the games and the after the game and stuff like that, because I didn't go there to actually take in the city and in the sights. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with Baltimore and what it has to offer. So now, after you got out of college, Pat, after you got out of college, it didn't take you very long to start playing professional soccer. You signed almost straight away. You signed indoors and outdoors. The Crystal Palace Baltimore was the USL second division team you played with.
Correct.
And you played with them for a couple of years, didn't you?
Yeah. So I actually got drafted at a college to go to MLS with Kansas City Wizards at the time, Sporting KC. Didn't work out. I'm very happy. I was that player that would get looked by MLS teams, but just couldn't hold on, and go on trials. Couldn't make it, dropped back down to USL, and then eventually over time, found my niche in Baltimore with the Blast, and kind of just, I made my career coaching youth ball and stuff like that, and found my niche. I thought, I did a pretty good job of learning the indoor game and being around it. That was a helpful situation, but our management and our coaching staff always did a great job of teaching that next group of guys, and I was part of that, and it continues on to today. I played indoor, outdoor for about 3 or 4 years, and then just, like I said, focused on indoor at some point.
Well, the Baltimore Blast were, I mean, they're your home for 10 years, and one of the things, Pat, that I noticed, and it just sort of jumped out at me when I was reading up on your bio and your career, was that the Baltimore Blast you played for them for 10 seasons. 9 of those seasons they make it to the championships. 5 of those 9 they win. That's extraordinary. And oh, by the way, it kind of, I mean, it's not like their first championship was your rookie season, and it's not like their last championship will be the year that you left. But that run of 9 appearances in the finals in a 10-year shot is absolutely extraordinary. So what I want to do is I want to sort of go over those seasons a little bit, at least just talking about the championship series. Now, I would expect, I'm an old guy, and in my memory, I have a senior moment quite frequently, and it's in trying to get my memories together as to when something happened and how it happened, especially when it's condensed in my past, is a little difficult. So I don't know how clear you are on whether it was the 2018 season or the 2015 season, but I've got some details in front of me sort of to run through that a little bit. The first thing
sometimes you get confused. You get confused sometimes. It'll come back and sometimes, and you have to match. I always get confused of which teammate was on which team sometimes. Did he come here? Did he come there? That's kind of where you try to, the memory of the game sometimes jogging memory a little bit, but yeah, nine championship. I'm proud of that. We gave her a
Absolutely.
chance to win every year. The one year we didn't make it, we lost in the semi, and we battled our butt off. We just couldn't figure it out in that series. They were the better team, so losing to Monterey is not the worst thing. And the one time you didn't make it.
Yeah. So the first year is 2008, 2009, and this is an interesting year as far as the league association is concerned, because the previous season was the last season of MASL 2, and the next season is the first season of MASL 3. So this is the NISL, and not to be confused with the league that is operating down in the South today called the NISL. It's not the same league, although it is the same name. It is the National Indoor Soccer League. Here I am. I'm following this sport for years, buddy, and I absolutely missed the NISL existing in the 2008-2009 season. But they did, and that's where the Baltimore Bass played, and you guys won a championship.
Yeah, the history of indoor soccer is really crazy.
Yeah.
If you know history, you kind of know products and turns, but there's a lot of divisions sometimes and a lot of coming back together. Teams go out, come back in. That year, the league separated and called a league called XSL and NISL, and then it split and then came back together. It happens. Different, minds separate and then try to get back together, but it's something that happens too many times, and we need to not divide. We need to stay together, to work together, and I talk about that all the time, even in our meetings. We can't fight with each other. We got to work together.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll even take that segue to talk about that a little bit, because that's been a passion of mine from the very beginning. I was frustrated back in the 80s when the NASL and the MISL were trying to beat each other out indoors. The NASL was trying to do an indoor scene, and then they didn't, and then they did, and the MISL they were battling, in the player contracts and the whole thing, and it's never stopped. I mean, it's never stopped. There's been this thing going on all the way up to today. I mean, why can't? I mean, it's frustrating that the owners, and there's some really great ones, and most of the guys in the MASL, I would say all of the people that are the principals in the MASL are solid people, and a lot of them that aren't, that are associated with these leagues that are breaking free and doing their own thing right now. It's just frustrating. What are your thoughts about how that affects the game of soccer, of indoor soccer?
Anytime there's professional sport, you're going to see division sometimes. Everybody thinks they know best. It's not a bad thing, just people, different mindsets. Way back in the day, the NFL had two leagues. That's why the AFL, it play out. There was USSL, FL. Every sport has sometimes some division. But can cool heads prevail, and can we continue to move forward to get the best results? Our league has gone stages of growth and then some weakness, not weak times. But you're trying to keep getting better for everyone, not just management, but players and owners. Can you do the best we can to keep growing this sport? Because I love it.
Yes.
It provides me an avenue of competitiveness. But it's my job, and I do my best to try to get the best product we can on the field for Harrisburg and compete. And ultimately, we want to compete one day for a championship, if not this year, and continue to grow. For the next couple of years, and not just look 1 year, look 5 years down the road.
Right, and that's a wise thing to do, because people that are looking 1 year down the road may tend to make decisions that aren't best for the long-term health of either their team or the overall sport. One of the things that I've mentioned a few times here on this show is that, I mean, it's unfortunate that this season Guadalajara wasn't able to make it in. That the league's not bringing in any new teams, and it's unfortunate that the Florida Tropics, went out and aren't going to be here anymore, at least for the foreseeable future. But that all being said, this sport has suffered through a lot of annual attrition on a somewhat regular basis. To lose one team instead of four, instead of picking up three and losing four, and then two of the three you picked up last year fold next year, and all that kind of thing going on. I mean, this was a pretty solid turnaround, only losing one team from the league. Yeah. So going back to that NASL season. So in ISL season, that was a 1-game championship. The Baltimore Blast beat the Rockford Rampage for 13-10 was the final score.
Yeah, I didn't know the score. Multi-point scoring, of course, but I actually didn't know the score. I know it was a close game, but I didn't know the actuals. I'll probably know. The only one I kind of know is just because it was high scoring Sonora, and it was like 14-13, 13-12, something.
Right.
You don't really remember the score sometimes, but yeah, I knew it was a very close game.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a minute. So 2009 MISL 3 first season. This is the year that I guess you lost in the semifinals to Monterey.
Yeah, my second year we lost to Monterey. Yeah.
So that's the only season in your career with the Baltimore Blast that the Blast did not make the championships.
That's true. It wasn't a good year, I guess. We actually had a decent team here, just didn't. We didn't play very well in that series. We were a little beaten up. I remember we just didn't play well, and when you play Monterey and you don't play well, you're going to lose. That year was a kind of, we'll say this every year, a transition where we lost our captain in PJ Wakefield, and was kind of like our all world at that point. It was on free kicks, power play offense, power play defense, everything. And that's the DNA of the Baltimore Blast, where a guy, it kind of does everything, and then he's replaced by someone else, and it goes on and on. But it constantly from one team to the next. Danny did a great job of transitioning guys into roles, and keep improving as a team, but keep improving as individuals.
The final for the 2011 season, I'm looking at 2010, 2011. The championship was a 1-game single elimination, which is interesting because it's interesting how the different leagues and the different seasons, they change the different formats, because in this case it was a home series with a mini game for the semifinals, but the final was a season single elimination. The single elimination final score was 16-7. Milwaukee Wave beat the Baltimore Blast. And it's interesting. It's interesting, Pat, when you look through this history, because it looks like the Baltimore Blast have a running rivalry working out with Milwaukee, Kansas City, Monterey, and Sonora for a short time. I mean, those seem to be the teams during this period of time that the Blast are frequently running into.
Pretty well-known franchises in soccer.
Right. Absolutely. So then again, the next season is again with Milwaukee. You're playing Milwaukee. This time it's a 2-game series. And this is 2012. And Milwaukee beats the Blast 14-2 in the first game. and then 12-10 in overtime in the second game. So now this is sounding, at this point, it's sort of looking like
not good.
The Milwaukee,
not a lot of losses.
The Milwaukee Wave are kind of having your number right at this point. But the 2012 season comes around and we've got a different result. The 2020, we got a different result now, man, because now it's the Missouri Comets, and we're still playing the multi-point system. So the first game in the finals, this is a 2-game final, and the first game in the finals is 21-12, Baltimore over Missouri, and then 8-6, Baltimore over Missouri, at First Mariner Arena in Baltimore. One of the things that I'm noticing here is the attendance on a lot of these. We're looking at 6,000 to 8,000 fans in attendance during this period of time. What can you speak to as far as why the league? I mean, I know obviously in Towson it doesn't have the capacity to hold 8,000 fans, but in the arenas that do, I mean, I guess Utica and Kansas City are doing pretty well again with bringing in fans, but I know San Diego and some of the other teams are having a hard time getting fans. What do you think the problem with that is?
That was the great thing about my career, where when you went to the arena at a home game, there was going to be at minimum 4,000 people at the stadium. And there's games where we'd have 2 or 3 games a year where there's 10,000 people, and the place is packed. But you average 6, 7 each year. That's an awesome thing as a player to know. The fans are behind you. Teams are coming into your building and being amazed by, the fans are on top of your loud screaming. It just it shows how good the management behind the to take people to the front office, year in, year out, putting butts in the seats, making a entertaining product on the field and a winning culture on the field. So you want to come back, and then you had a good time. I love downtown. At the Baltimore Arena. The various names that would go, but from just driving downtown, the ambiance around it, you just had a different feeling. Nothing against Towson. I went to school there, but it was just a surreal feeling of you're going downtown. It's right next to the Oral Park, Camden Yards, and M&T. You're going downtown. You're a professional team. It's going to be loud. There's going to be a lot of people there. And then there's championship games. There'll be 9,000 people. We'll have a random game during the regular season where there's 10,000 people there. I remember we had a snow game, and it was a blizzard, and it took me 4 hours to get to downtown because it was a blizzard, and we saw 1,000 people. And I was like, how is anybody here?
Right.
And that's what it was. There's a loyal fan base with a blast and a winning culture, and that credit to the players, but credit to the owner in the front office. Year in, year out, do what you got to do to put those butts in seats.
Yeah, it makes a big difference for the players. It makes a big difference for the fans too. It's sort of like it's sort of like a crescendo in a way, where you have the more you get, the more you have, the more you get. Is when people go there and they see a 12,000 seat stadium or arena that's holding 3,000 fans. There's something missing in the electricity from the fans, and I'm sure that the players catch that too. Whereas in that same venue, even if it's not that big, even if it's a 5,000 seat venue, when it's packed, the electricity, the noise, the excitement, the hometown team is advantaged. The visiting team, is pumped up. I know that you guys get pumped up when you're on the road and the fans are cheering against you. I mean, I get all of that. That's pretty fun. but it's a different environment when you've got that crowd going crazy in the fans and in the stands. And I love the fact that some of the teams are able to right now. Some of the teams, I know Baltimore. I mean, it's a smaller venue, but I know Baltimore is doing well as far as filling up the seats. I know Kansas City is doing well. I know that Utica is doing well. I hope it spreads and they're able to figure it all out around the whole league.
Going to another venue and it's packed, the Kansas City's when they used to sell out, they score a goal and they played what is the Enrique Iglesias song, and I couldn't stand it because they kept "Baby I Like It." That was the song, and the crowd's going crazy. It's a good thing. Sellouts and the team behind their team, but that was a really good era of our league, I think. And we look back and we're like, hey, how can we get back to that? At the time they were saying, hey, can you see the team? We're at 6,000-7,000. How can you get 8,000? But there was a really good times of playing, really good teams, and the crowds were really good. Hopefully we can get there one day again soon.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I'd love to see it happen. I mean, it's exciting. Like I said, it's exciting when it's happening in some of the cities, at least, that are able to do it. I know, here in San Diego, we're kind of excited because Phil Salvaggio is building the new stadium, the new arena, and it's a much smaller, much more intimate venue than the Pechanga. So also, of course, as the host, team of the venue, they're going to be able to play on Saturdays and Fridays. I just got a bunch of my dates, with the schedule coming out. I got my schedule came out and it was, Sunday night games again. So hopefully that'll change here in San Diego. But I love the atmosphere when it's a crowded stadium. So Pat, the final year of the MISL 3 was 2013-2014. And the Baltimore Blast played the Missouri Comets in that final championship series. And of course, the Kansas City Comets came out on top that year again. And but just to make it, was it a mini game? Yeah, it was. It was a mini game. It was a mini game. Dang it.
Yeah. The year before we beat them. They actually they finally got over the hump by beating Milwaukee. And then we beat them that year. We was a rematch of the previous year. We lose game 1 in Kansas City where they hit. Funny thing, it would be a tie game and nowadays, but they had a lot of 3-pointers. The Heat Asapor was on fire. I think he had 5 3-point goals or 4 3-point goals and was on fire that night. We came back game 2, actually blew them out.
Yep.
Game 3, mini game. We were winning the game at the very end and just kind of had a couple hiccups that, the ball just found its way into the net for them and kind of that game. But, and when you look back, it was, great series. Could have gone either way, just to go our way that year, but we were able to rebound and, we had a lot of new guys, kind of that 13-14 season, or 12-13, 13-14. We had a really different group kind of come in, and that the William and Zella area, the Lucas Roque, Vinny came in, I think the year after that. We kind of found the group that was actually just into the three-peat coming up. So we learned how to win together, and we lost together. But when it all said and done, we were able to figure out a way to get a group that understood each other and was battle tested to do the unthinkable and winning 3 in a row.
And and the next season is just the year before that starts. So this is the first season of the MASL. So now, as your from your perspective as a player at that time, what was your feelings about what was going on with when the MISL USL dropped the MISL? They weren't going to keep it going anymore. The MASL came together with the merger of the teams coming together with the PASL. Now all of a sudden, what's happening from my perspective anyway, what's happening is it's like we were talking about earlier, a lot of the teams that came in from the PASL were teams that didn't have the ownership group that's going to, a lot of them dropped by the wayside pretty quickly over the next couple of years. But that first year in the MASL was a pretty stacked roster of teams. I mean, there was a lot of teams that were playing at that time. And you guys come up against that old nemesis of Monterey again, man. And now it wasn't La Raza this time; it's the Flash. Yeah. But the Baltimore Blast are having to play in Monterey again. Talk a little bit about that series.
I know. I'm trying to think. It's a little. I think we lost game 1 at home.
Let me find it.
I'm not sure. We lost game 1. I know the series ends game 3, mini game, triple overtime. I'm blanking on his name. He's Better Lake Sonora and Monterey. He had a free kick. Kind of hit deflection before that, but
so
not
Monterey,
as shocking.
So Monterey beats the Blast in overtime in Baltimore. In the first game.
Yeah.
And then Baltimore comes back and beats Monterey by the same score in regulation, 6-4, this time in regulation in Monterey. So now you have to play the mini game, and I remember this so well. And now you've got to play the mini game in Monterey, and it also goes was that a triple overtime? It only says overtime.
It was at least 3. It felt like the game was never ending. It's really hot in Monterey in that arena. You felt like you played forever, especially if you've already played a game before. We scored to tie it with a couple seconds ago in the game, whatever you call the quarter that you have to play.
Right.
Lucas scores right at the end when we had a 6th attacker. It was one of those always somehow, some way we had to either get a goal, preserve the lead. Always a close game. Lucas scores. We had tons of chances. I remember tons of chances in the mini game, overtime, and just couldn't score. It's the way it goes sometimes. And like I said, I remember it was a free kick that Adrian standing post, and somehow the guy still squeezed it into the little area that he was standing on. But we lose, but that was the last of the sad moments in Monterey, that's for sure. When we always actually had success with the Blast playing on there, even regular season games, always comfortable there. It's them against us, and we were fine with that always. We won game 2, we were fine. I don't think we lost many regular games. Like if we played the full game, we didn't lose many games down in Mexico. We would always just find a way to grind it out. Wasn't the flashiest style. Good team defense. Always good teams and free kicks. And down there, we never really made the bad mistakes that you can't do. We always felt comfortable with the small field. That's having a small field and feeling comfortable, but playing in that atmosphere, that's what you want. You want the crowd yelling at you. You want it to be a close game. And we always just found ways to, and it wasn't just one player, it was always a team. It was a different guy stepping up, but it was always that collective group of effort that got the job done, either to get there or just not winning. But then, like I said, it led into that repeat right after that.
Well, and so to talk about that, it's going to be Mexico again. Only this time you got to go down to Hermosillo, Sonora, Solis de Sonora. And you're playing them in Baltimore first, and it's 7-4 win. And then you've got to go down to Sonora. And I remember this game too, 14-13 overtime. I mean, what a battle royale that was.
Yeah, the big thing I will remember, I'm not going to say the person's name, but it was a executive in our league for a team saying, "You have no chance of winning because nobody's beating them there." And I laughed at like, you don't know what I'm playing here. We don't know who we are, and we just laughed at it because he kept saying it, and our players would just laugh, no big deal. And it was a game that we don't usually play. We're not the team that scores a bunch of goals.
Right.
But we had that day. We gave up a bunch of goals. I remember I actually passed the ball in an open net a couple minutes into the game, didn't know where William was, and kind of passed the ball back, and it went in. And it was like, we constantly were rallying. The game never got one way or the other. No team up a bunch of goals, but it was one of those games we didn't really play, but found a way to, have some in our back pocket to score a bunch of goals that day.
So it's interesting because at this point, you guys still the Blast weren't playing at Towson yet. You're still playing in downtown Baltimore. So you're playing on a relatively speaking, you're playing on a large field. And Sonora's field was probably one of the smallest ever. I mean, that was like a bull ring.
Sonora's field was actually in Philadelphia before that. Their boards and all, so we were kind of comfortable. The one year I actually played at Temple University. I don't know if it was my rookie or second year, something like that. I think my second year. So we had some familiarity to a smaller field. The practice venue at Baltimore that time as a smaller arena. So, once you feel comfortable a little bit, but it's soccer. They have to play on. You have to play. The only little different was the boards kind of came in, and it took us a little while to react. Like a ball shot really, really wide, come through the box somehow, and that was. So if you shot the ball really wide, it would go down the line. And just changing that mindset, and every Monterey and Sonora, they always had guys that could always hit a ball very, very well. No weaknesses. Left and right foot, and that's what they didn't just score goals, getting shots. It was rebounds. It's so well that you couldn't give up a rebound. You had to block a lot of shots, but we found a way to score a lot of goals ourselves because hey, we had good players still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Baltimore Blast have pretty historically leaned heavily on the defensive side. There's been quite a few years where they've had the best record as far as goals against are concerned in whatever league they're playing in. So so it is pretty fun when you got to pull out all stops and drop 14 goals in order to win a game. I mean,
overtime, and that's one of those moments you'll always remember. Power play goal, Tony, and it's something we worked on. For the double pass thing, we kind of saw something in their power play defense in that field that kind of could work. Perfect movement, perfect timing, hits a shot. Tons of emotions. Tony was kind of, especially at that time, was finding big goal after big goal for us.
Right.
And then you got William on the other side, not too happy that we gave 13 goals. But it didn't matter to them because we won. That's what the team actually cared about. That was the great thing about all those teams. They cared about one thing. It wasn't awards. It was out. Can we win champion? Before Mike, sacrifice a goal or two to play a little bit more defense and not cheat. And that's what they had to do, and that's why they were all on the Blast, because they would do those things.
So in the following season, so that was number 3, I believe. That was your 3rd championship with the Baltimore Blast at that point. We got 2 more to go. This is 2017, and again, it's the Solis de Sonora that you guys have to play up against. And again, and Royal Farms Arena, and Sonora
lose game 1.
Yep.
Hey, we lose game
1. And you lose game 1. So you come back down in Sonora. This is another overtime game, 9-8. And you have to win this game. I mean, it's over if you lose this game.
like I said, we didn't lose many regular games in Monterey, so we just chalked it up. I remember in the locker room we said, "Okay, we lost game one. Let's go down, win two." That was the mindset.
Right.
Was able to win game two. Wild moment, kind of score at the end, tie it up. They scored a goal. I don't know, it was 40 seconds ago. We scored again, and then we win in overtime. So now we're in mini game, and then we did a really good job in that. We played really. That was the one that we played really well in that mini game. The second year in Sonora.
Really right. Well. And 1-0 final for that. But I mean, it's pretty amazing when you're I mean, kind of from looking at it from your backs are against the wall, you're tied up, it's in overtime. You have to, not only do you have to get the next goal to win that game, but then you have to win the mini game as well in order to get the championship. And that's exactly what the Baltimore Blast did. Actually,
earlier in that season too, in the first playoff series, we lost game one to Harrisburg. Same kind of thing. Yeah, we actually lost game one at home. Hugo had a huge game, and same thing kind of happened in the locker room. Actually, we're a little down a bit. And it was like, no, we're just going to go up and win 2 games in Harrisburg. No big deal. We lose game one. You have to win the series. And that was the mindset of the team. It's not over till it's over. Anytime. We're well prepared. Danny always did a good job of preparing us in different situations, saw everything. If it was different free kicks, like we scored a game-winning goal against Sonora on a free kick that is our best free kick, and we never used it all year because we needed to hold it for that time and place.
Oh wow!
And I'm laughing at Danny. It was a long play, and we're like 3 shooters, and to us, it's we call it bread and butter type of play. It's our golden play, but to other teams, they've never seen it all year. You haven't seen it in a while, and everybody's execution was right there, and Vinny did a good job of showing and on a rebound. But there's things that Danny prepared us. Even down, up, the preparation was there. We won game one, great. We lost game one, that's okay too. You got to win the series. And year in and year out, we would say how good can we be at the end of the season, not at the beginning of the season, because that's what counts. Playoffs, America. It's playoffs that count.
That's right.
And we were always at our best at that playoff push.
So going into the next season, the playoff format has changed. So now it looks like MASL has decided it's going to be a single elimination playoff series throughout. Well, no, only for the finals.
Maybe just the final.
That's right. Maybe the Western Conference. So no, it was the conference final and the Ron Newman Cup final. It was single elimination, and now you're going back.
Milwaukee. We played Milwaukee in the semis. That was the year that was the first year of the CQ, or now called it Nelson. I remember we won a big game in Milwaukee a couple weeks ago in the season to get the home field against Milwaukee, which is huge. I'll be very honest, they were the better team that year than us. They were a lot better than us. And we knew on the plus count we're going to give it our best shot, but we were at home. So that made a world of difference. And that small, we knew to play at that point. And we handed it to them at home. But then went to Monterey and got to Mexico to win a championship.
Got to go to Mexico to win a championship, man.
Yeah. Well, you have to go to Mexico somewhere. That's the great thing about our league. You have to beat the teams. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be there. They're going to be a great. So someone's got to. If it's a West Coast team, that's fine. But if they don't, and when we were getting that final, we have to do it, and we were fine with that.
And it was a gut check. It was a gut check game too. I mean, the final score was 4-3, and again, it was a gut check game. No easy wins down there,
No.
but Baltimore came through 3 years in a row to make that happen. That's your retirement game at that point.
Not knowing it.
Okay.
That was it. That was it.
So that's an amazing run. Nine showings in the championship series, 5 championships in 10 years, across officially, I guess, across 3 different leagues. If you want to, got to include the NISL there at the beginning. So that's across 3 different.
I don't know. I don't. That's the beauty. We're in a bunch of different leagues, but I was able to play in my hometown for my hometown team. You know, for one team for my career.
Yeah.
It's special.
All right, so let's move into the current day. Shortly after that season, the next season starts, and you're the head coach of the Harrisburg Heat. How did that happen? Yeah,
it's a little funny story. I'm always the guy that kind of looks ahead. I got kind of retired 2 years prior to that and came back. I never wanted to be the guy that kind of lingered on. I wanted to kind of end early. My body kind of went through from tough couple of years. We were just playing way too many minutes and lots of overtime games and putting my body to the test. But I was always like, what's the next step for me? And I was actually on a family vacation to Disney World with my family, and Carl, the owner of the Heat, called my dad saying, would I be interested in coaching? Actually, I never really was the guy who signed a contract early for the Blast. It's weird. My dad's the GM president. I always signed my contract late, really late, like a month before the season. Never, because I wasn't going anywhere. It's very obvious I'm not leaving. You know, even though teams would maybe offer me something, I was never leaving. And I signed my contract really early that year, like a week prior to this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to play one more at least. Let's see how it goes. And then Carl came with this proposal and kind of thought about it for a couple of months and lingered. And then I'm in, my wife's from Syracuse. We're at her parents' house or lake house actually in Syracuse. And I remember just saying, hey, I'm going to do it. You know, I can't move on. I love every minute of the Blast. They're still my friends. I consider them my family. We see each other a lot. It's just I had to move on personally. The grind in and out was getting harder and harder, and I had a new adventure. I felt bad leaving them a little bit because they are my guys. You know, I'll take care of them to the day I die, and they know if they got to call me, they will. If I need some, I'll call them. But just then I had to move on. Job that I couldn't refuse at the time, and you know, took the head coaching job. And then kind of told Carl, if I'm going to do this, I want it to be all on me. So I want to be the GM too. I want to make the decisions. I want to, if something goes wrong player wise, I want it to be on me. So that's how the kind of GM head coaching job came about.
And first season, with you at the helm of the Harrisburg Heat, was the last season before we started getting problems with the COVID thing. And that sort of what it's interesting to me looking at that, because when you came in, the MASL had a full season, and then the second season it gets cut short right before the playoffs, and then a number of teams, including the Harrisburg Heat, decide not to participate for a season, and then we have last season, and from what it looked like to me, a lot of the teams that had taken the previous year off took a little bit of time to get their feet wet again. I mean, most of those teams didn't start off really strong that had come in. Now, Baltimore, of course, you know, made it to the finals again, but most of those teams didn't start really strong. talk to me a little bit about and share with us a little bit about what your plan is. You mentioned a 5-year look ahead a little while ago, and this is getting close to that 5-year time. But then you had that interruption. Then you had that kind of interruption going on. What do you see going on with the Harrisburg Heat? What do you like going forward?
Yeah, when I took out, I told Carl right away there has to be some planning for the future. You can't look 1 game, 5 games, 1 year. We have to keep planning. We have to develop players because our market is smaller. Our salary is smaller, and that's fine. I'm completely fine with that. So that first year, we brought in some guys that could really play. We made some trades. We made some acquisitions that kind of worked for us. And that second year, when COVID hit, we were firing all cylinders. We made the playoffs. We have the up and coming superstar with Tavoy. Ricky Carvalho, Daniel Villa. We had a team. We had a really good team, playing really well together. Not saying it was very similar to the Blast, but that DNA was there. And then, it is what it is. The next year, we were like, it was our year to we're going to go for it. This is the year we're going for it. And we don't play. So the year we you plan for year 2 to be very competitive. Year 3, try to win. To not play, it kind of just hit the reset button for us. And it is what it is. We trade Tavoy away to your San Diego Sockers. I think he's done pretty well for them there. But some guys kind of just moved on, and we understood that as an organization. So we hit that reset button in that last a complete reset. We didn't have to start, like you said, and perspired from there. It just went on, and we didn't have a good season. No, nothing against it. We were bad. So trying to rebound, we're trying to bring players that we're looking a year in advance. There's guys that got good minutes last year that's going to help them for this year. We're making some acquisitions and trying to, like I said, rebound to, be a competitive team and to make that playoff push.
So what it sounds like you're saying is that the COVID effect really affected the Harrisburg Heat. I mean, it had a serious effect on that 5-year plan we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, it was a 2-3, and then I would get the 5 after 3. We're have to say, but we did everything for that 3rd year. Everything had to go right, and it did. COVID is what it is. We moved on. The organization moved on from it. Do I wish I have that year back? Without a doubt. But the guys don't, look back right now. We're looking ahead, and we'll go from there.
Of course. Yeah. Well, it's exciting to have the season coming up here pretty soon. Do you have any involvement, or any of your players going to be involved in the World Mini Football World Cup that's coming up at the end of this month?
Technically, Daniel Villa, he's on a roster. With one issues, he probably won't be playing for us this season. But he's on a roster. Great kid. His special talent. He'll be on the Mexican team. I don't know if any other guys will on it now. It was kind of fun. I was there 2015 with the Arena Mini World Cup or whatever it was. Me and Tony were on the team. Phil was the coach. We wanted them, but it's a good opportunity to represent the country. And play with different guys you're not usually playing with. And try to, as a collective group, get the job done.
Are you going to be going to Utica for the combine?
The combine's next weekend. Yes, a week from now. The good thing is, like you said, upstate York's not that far, so I get to just drive up. It's about 5-6 hours. Not. I'm used to it though. Like I said, my wife's from Syracuse, so we have to drive up there all the time for see family and stuff. So it's not very hard at all. You just
What
put
kind
on
of
some podcast.
what kind of skill do you expect to find up there?
You never know what's going to happen. Last year we kind of went in going, we need to find a goalkeeper. And we were able to do that $5,000. But it's going to get better every season.
Sure.
But I thought Alex Gomez, who actually knew prior to going into the combine, I actually was trying to invite him to our preseason before we went to that. I knew he was a good player. So there's players in there that can make rosters and make teams, but ultimately you have to, just like every job, even if you get drafted in an NFL draft, you have to go in and win the job. It doesn't matter where you get drafted. You have to go into that preseason. You have to go into that atmosphere and win the job. You have to ultimately take someone else's job.
Right.
And that's professional sports. So it doesn't matter what round you're drafted. People say, Brock Purdy's killing, with the 49ers. He's Mr. Irrelevant. He didn't go in saying, I'm the last pick. So the first rounder's got to go in and do his job. Everybody's got to go win their job. But it doesn't matter where you're drafted. It doesn't matter how you get there. Go in and perform in that combine to get your stock up. Go in that preseason and do well to earn your roster spot.
Well, Pat Healey, this has been great. I mean, we've talked a little bit over an hour. That's usually what I'm trying to shoot for this kind of thing. I appreciate your time. Very good interview. I really appreciate you coming on with me today. Harrisburg Heat Head Coach, General Manager Pat Healey. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk again soon. I look forward to seeing you, buddy.
Sounds good.